Hey, it's ThursdAGE, and today we've got our old pal Malcolm who's going to hang out with us, and we're going to talk about Cults of the Mythos, released brand new today in the Green Ronin online store. There's a QR code right there that you'll see on the screen. All you got to do is take your phone, take a picture of it, or put it on your camera, and you will be transported as if by magic to the store where you can pick it up for $12.99, which is pretty awesome. Very, very good price. And howdy, friends who are in chat. I want to say, I did. Jay Gray's here. Good to see you, pal. Of course, discussing what a great price point the Cults of the Mythos is at. $12.99 is pretty good for a source book, I would say.
That's how they get you.
What's that? That's how they get you?
That's how they get you. Yeah.
Love it.
Them cults. Them cults of Mythos.
That's right. The first taste is cheap, as they famously say. Hey, Malcolm, howdy.
Howdy.
How are you today?
I am not too bad. I am recovering from a very intensive Savate seminar. For those of you who don't know, Savate is French kickboxing. I try to do lots of different physical activities that I'm too old for, and that's one of them.
Gotcha. Well, so that's kind of exciting. So that's French kickboxing, and you do the test, and now you're kind of training for it and getting all. Yeah.
My cardio was a little short to go as far as I wanted. So.
Well, good for you for doing that. I think that's kind of fun. I am doing nothing of the sort. I'm practicing the ancient French art of napping.
Yes,
and they just call it nap.
I miss the French art of wine drinking.
Oh yeah,
it's not really in the cards for me outside of holidays anymore, as I have gotten older. Because I tend to get kidney stones when I drink wine.
Oh boy. Well, that's I just get
when I drink red wine in particular. So it's a bit of a bummer. And that's what people want to hear about is things to do with my health and fitness.
Absolutely. Right. Let's get into the
not at all Cults of the Mythos.
Well, first I do want to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
And a belated birthday as well.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Folks may not know this, but you and I were born on the same day.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
We celebrate the birthdays together, and So, which is interesting because you're much older than I am. Much older.
Oh, Troy.
No, we are, I think, about the same age, actually.
Yeah, we're either exactly the same age or very close, and we're about the same height too. Actually,
we are. Yeah. Oftentimes people will refer to us as twins. When we're standing next to each other. I couldn't grow a beard if I tried.
Well, my head is getting more and more DeVito-esque over time. So
that's where the similarities lie. Hey, so we've got Parvati says Happy New Year and happy birthday to you both. Thank you, friend. Very much appreciate that. Stromer says fitness cult and is it Ryla?
Relia. I usually
Relia.
But I don't think there's a canonical. Yeah, we're just not pronouncing anything right. Today. There's not a canonical pronunciation.
That's okay.
I remember the man himself with all of his offensive opinions.
Many flaws.
One of his neutral opinions was I believe that it's pretty neutral. How you just pronounce it however it comes to you.
Well, here on ThursdAGE, we say it however it comes out, so no problem.
ThursdAGE.
We are, Pavarti. We are the same adventure game engine, for sure. Thank you for the Stormer says happy existence anniversary. Jay Gray said, they say you either grow gray or bald, but Troy grew disembodied. Yeah, I did indeed.
It's like one of those elves in because that's one of the things that's supposed to happen, right? Is that as the ages turn,
Yes.
the spirit overwhelms the flesh of the elves, and then that's how the elves in the Tolkien legendarium transform from epic physical beings to these whispery spiritual beings.
I
right?
see. So that's why I'm transitioning my spirit just too much from my physical body.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Oh, this is good too. That's actually true, friend. If you manage to pronounce them right, terrible things could happen. So just as well.
Yeah.
So this Cult of the Mythos is phenomenal. I'm just gonna plop it up so that add it to the there we go. I'm not.
We got some great work from Steve, from Danielle, Lauzon, and Monte. All great. And the sort of history of this is a little interesting because a lot of this stuff Danielle worked on, but for various reasons we didn't put it in the main book. Okay. And then we decided we wanted to do a cults book. And so we wanted two things. One of them was to not only have new cults, but to also flesh out the existing cults in the core book.
Nice.
So if not almost all of the cults in the core book get a treatment in there.
Okay. So a question we've got coming from Jay Gray. A couple questions. One is, how would elves deal with the mythos? That's a good question.
I was actually at the first game convention I went to was this game convention called Cthulhu in 2003. And that's where I met Ken Hite and Ed Greenwood for the first time. And which is funny because that actually lives not far from me, but I've never really met him, right? But they actually brainstormed that very scenario, right? And they're in the context of Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms. And basically the idea they came up with is that all of, how in, the sort of generic D&D mythology, there was a great war and then the evil losers got kicked down underground. Well, what they came up with was that this is propaganda. What happened is that, periodically the mythos deities wake up, right? When there's a critical amount of magic in the world and they wipe everything out. And so the dark elves and gray dwarves and things are the survivors of those conflicts, right? Who are smart enough to stay underground and not get annihilated. So, there's a notion for you.
That's very interesting. I like that a lot. Stan says, I got to go to conventions to meet creators who live within 15 miles of you. It's an industry standard. Let's see here. So one of the things that I like about this source book is that there's some mechanics in here, kind of management style.
That was Steve's contribution, and it's fantastic because it takes the different alienation meters and uses them as kind of measurements of cult competency. Cool. And you can use them to track the evolution of a cult and what the bad things that might happen when you act against it. But it also gives members of cults particular special stunts they can use too. So it plugs into a bunch of core concepts in the game that are distinct to Cthulhu Awakens and just expands them organizationally. And you can pretty much always count on Steve to deliver, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think,
innovate.
He outdid himself this time around. And
that's saying something. Yeah, he's a true talent.
Yes.
A quick question here from Jay Gray. Now, do we deal with the creation of the cults, and there's also a question of updating the rules from the Fantasy Age Companion?
The Fantasy Age Companion.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, some of the things from I'm going to do the companion question first, and then get back to cults. So, a lot of the stuff in the companion, we kind of wanted to retool it or give it another look before we reintroduced it to the game. And some stuff is not coming back, but some stuff is coming back.
Yeah.
It just may not all come back in one book. Certainly, I would like to do a big expansion book for the Fantasy Age core, right?
Okay.
But right now, a couple of things are happening. Like right now, Lost Island of the Pirate Queen is just going through its production stuff.
Yeah.
And I just finished the pre-edit text for Fantasy Age Foes. So that's going to go through the editorial process and everything. So we have a couple of things ahead of us, and of course, things ahead. But general purpose book,
yeah,
with more of that, yeah, it's going to happen. But sometimes, there are things in the companion that they have a better home somewhere else. Like the Orion, I think we're better in techno fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so real quick before you go on,
they have a context.
So before you go on, we always we get the extra bit of info, but this was very specifically about, were we adapting rules from the Fantasy Age companion into the cults of the mythos?
No. This is a distinct system.
Hey, Duke, good to see you.
Well,
thanks. That's great.
That could have been a shorter answer.
I was trying to get in there. I know. We expect none.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No. Basically, the different forms of alienation are themselves the abilities. Of the cult, right? So basically, you will have some one that has now I'm trying to remember all of the Cthulhu Awakens stuff, right? So one that has a high entity score. That means, that, well, for individuals, right? Entities is your exposure to, mythos entities that aren't mythos, right?
Right.
But for a cult, entities involves their connection to mythos entities and their ability to summon them and call them to do their bid. Right?
Okay, got you.
So it's a distinct system. You can certainly adapt it to Fantasy Age, right?
Yes.
But it is designed. It's pretty much purpose built for Cthulhu Awakens.
Stan, you're absolutely right. Never give a 500-word answer when a 2K word one is begging to be released.
Well, that's what I learned from freelancing.
That's right, especially when you're paid by the word. So
that's actually, I want to address that real quick. Yeah. I wish it worked like that. But here's the thing. If you write more words than you've been assigned, in a lot of cases, you just get paid for the words you're assigned anyway.
Yeah, and it sort of throws
and you get told to get rid of some of those words.
That's right. Yeah, it basically it makes you a little difficult to deal with because to do all that overwork and then to say, look at this, I've 10 times the request makes it 10 times.
You should write over, because when you edit, right? Like you should edit viciously and cut stuff, right?
What do you think about? Okay, yeah. What do you just since we're bringing it up and we like to meander. When you are doing some freelance work or you're writing some stuff up, what is that percentage? Like, so are you saying in the process write over, but before you hand it over, meet the word count, or what are you saying there?
Well, you want to meet the word count with whatever you hand in as you find it. So. Yeah. This is something that here's the thing. A lot of freelancers just write, and then they just throw it at me. And sometimes they don't use even the built-in proofing tools of a word processor. And that is incorrect. What you should be doing is you should be writing your draft, and then you should be editing your own draft before I ever see it.
Yeah.
And then you use the proofing tools on it. And then I will look it over again and send it back to you and blah, blah, blah. So you write over so that you can cut.
I like that. And I do think that it becomes a little bit of almost as someone who works closely with folks who submit written stuff, it can be very, we're really busy. there's a lot going on in the world, and to try to make sense of what it is that you've done and if it's over the count. I mean, this is wise words for folks to kind of know.
And we can tell when it's kind of a stream of consciousness thing, because one of the signs of it is I can generally tell when somebody stopped and started something again in the middle, because they will have very, terse to the point writing, and then, all of a sudden there's a long paragraph where they're trying to get around the point. And I know this is because they stopped, they took a break, went to sleep, whatever, and they're trying to home in on their idea after returning to the work. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the first things you can do is cut that down when you're editing your own work.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting endeavor to sort of know your own rhythms, and to be able to read your own stuff with a critical eye that that may be a little uncomfortable for some folks. Very interesting.
You just do it over and over again until it becomes a boring technical task, right?
Until you bring all the joy and creativity.
Until you bring all the joy. Well, I find I enjoy looking at the final product, right? Like I recently did some work for a project I can't really talk about, but I'll be so happy when it comes out. But it was a short-term thing, and I had to grind out about 18,000 words for this, right? So, write, edit, send it to the developer, because I was I had the writing role in this case. Get it back, edit to taste. It goes back and forth a couple of times to figure a couple of things out. But then when I look at what has come from that process, and it's so nice, I can't wait for it to get out there.
Right. So a question for you then, since we're talking about kind of the creation process and writing in general, it's some of the stuff that I really enjoy. When you are joining us on Thursdays, we can kind of get into, but how much of what you do as you do it is an evolving piece of what you think the market is hungry for or will want? Like, I mean, how does that change over time, or is there a certain rule set that's kind of baked in?
I don't really think about, how do I put this? It's the concepting and outlining process that is about that, right? So I already know that anything I'm doing is in that box, right? But really, once it's time to do that, it's like, what can I offer that's distinct within that box, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the thing with Cthulhu Awakens, right? Is I wanted to present a game that had a different relationship with the mythos, right?
Yeah.
A more critical, less canon appreciating kind of relationship.
I really like it. I mean, it's a very intellectually strong position. Yeah.
But also one where, there's a coherent, like Cthulhu Awakens exists in a coherent game world, right?
Yeah.
Like with these cults in it, and with different historical moments in it. And I wanted there, to be a connection to that, right? Yeah. Because if you go too far in the, let's be iconoclastic, you don't present necessarily a strong message, right?
Yeah.
Or much to hold on to. So I tried to, it's a matter of balance. But mostly when you're actually doing it, you're just thinking of the 1,000 little things that you have to do, right?
Right.
Like things like, is this stunt that costs this? Is it consistent with prior stunts that cost that? And blah, 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 blah. And, what was one? Oh, for brinkmanship, right? That's the adventure set in the 60s. So, part of it was, I have to do a lot of research on the CIA in the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
And so, that research will lead to, things that are interesting and also that kind of critically engage that topic, right? Because the CIA was up to a lot of bad stuff in the 1960s.
Sure. Yeah.
In the 70s, in the 80s, probably the 90s.
Yeah, I think, and
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's something that we wanted to present, right? So there's some nods to like CIA psychedelic research and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So but it was all we wanted to make an adventure that was kind of midway between the sort of like 20s mythos period and the modern take on the mythos, because we had adventures in the core book that were at each pole, right? Because we have one in the 30s and then we have a contemporary one. So I wanted one smack dab in the middle, right? And then there was Sean Ingham's adventure, the God in the Tree. So basically together that creates a bunch of adventures through a historical period. So that was what I wanted to do. And it's just, what interesting things can we get out of that mission, right?
Yeah. This is an interesting, Stormer brings up kind of a classic sort of the notion, the Star Wars conundrum. How do you make something unique and interesting that retains its recognizable identity? And sometimes Star Wars itself has at odds with its sort of, look, with all these cute things.
Oh, you make Andor, man. that show, aside from the fact that apparently there were lots of references to like old like West End Star Wars lore, so there were people who actually worked on those books who I know who were excited about that. But if you look at what I would love to be the Tony Gilroy of gaming, man, because that show is exactly the kind of thing that I would love to do. Right.
So what about it was appealing to you, given what you do? And
because what he did, his whole process was to kind of not take the Star Wars setting at face value, right, as a thing that exists and has its own reality, and ask what kind of stories that are relevant to us that could be told about that, right? And that we could empathize with, right? So he managed to find these, human stories where, I am definitely usually more on the space wizard side of Star Wars fandom. Like, I love all that wacky Jedi mysticism. Yeah. But in Andor starts with a guy hitting his head and dying, right?
Okay.
And that's the impetus of events, right? Not a big lightsaber duel.
Right.
But a scuffle where somebody slips and falls and dies, and the title character gets in trouble for it, and it triggers a whole bunch of events. But in the meantime, you're going through and seeing these science fictional counterparts to working class communities and criminal communities and marginalized groups, and that's the kind of thing that I love to see. And it's the kind of thing that I love to implement, where there is something that is meaningful for us, right? But in that fantastical context.
Right. Duke mentions that it really is the what if we took this stuff seriously.
What if we took this stuff seriously? And that's the thing. I think because we are like in the late, we're kind of right in late self-devouring postmodernism now,
right?
Where everything is so referential that we have trouble taking it seriously, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to get really pretentious. So,
Random Penguin.
I just
want to say, hey, Random Penguin says, "What is this?" Well, this is our ThursdAGE live stream, and we're talking about Cults of the Mythos. But right now, we're taking a walk through. We're taking a masterclass in creating, really. I mean, honestly, and IP management and all that kind of good stuff. So if you got questions and stuff, let us know. Go ahead. Sorry, Malcolm.
All right. Well, no, that's too. No, I'm not going to invoke Baudrillard in a ThursdAGE. Not yet. Not yet. But anyway, what he said was that, basically we have all these media representations of the world around us that are so pervasive and surround us so thoroughly that they take the place of reality, right?
Yeah.
They're hyper reality. And one of the things is that we've been through this so much, right? We are immersed in it, we bathe in it. But I think it started to eat itself. We've become aware of its falsity, right? So nobody trusts anything. People have trouble distinguishing between news and entertainment.
Yeah.
And people even have trouble thinking that these things should be different.
Yeah.
And so that's the world that we live in. And so it makes it, when it comes to something like Star Wars, which is already fantasy, right?
Yeah.
It makes it incredibly difficult to take this thing that's already self-admittedly removed from reality, right? Because so much of reality is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in up to interpretation when it isn't. But you know what's interesting is it strikes me that there feels like a real sense of, for lack of a better term, media literacy, or a literacy that Cthulhu Awakens introduces, like a very good understanding of what, especially with the tack you've taken to kind of how you have decided to engage with the mythos in this, in this project. It feels like it's very aware of itself in a way that we are not aware, or maybe could be more aware of in modern day media. I think
I first tacked onto this closer to the beginning of my career because I did a lot of stuff in the World of Darkness.
Yeah.
And World of Dark, and I did a lot of splat books, little faction books, right? I did a bunch of them for Mage of the Ascension. And one of the things that's always in these little splat books is that, how members of this group see the world. And the thing I always thought was like, well, shouldn't these people have a little more sense and be a little more critical of the ideology they've given? So I started work on that. And when you apply that to things like, say, the foundational texts of the mythos, it means that you can, treat it just the way you might treat news from that period, which would have its biases, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna believe blatantly racist news from the 1930s. So why should you believe the racist elements of a Lovecraft story, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to seeing how it applies to, the simulated world in which your game takes place in, right? So obviously you question that, right? It's bullshit. So, what's behind the bullshit? What process created this in the fiction? And then you can really dig in and do something interesting, right?
I love that.
Also, what proceeds from that, right? And that's how we extend things further into the fictional history, into the modern day.
Yeah. I love this. Jay Gray, of course, realizing that suddenly realizing who you are because they know your work from before Green Ronin. And we can tempo. We'll get there right in just a moment. But I did want to talk real quick about, interesting. I'm looking at. I just want to show you this, Malcolm, just as an aside, apropos of nothing. But when you decided not to kind of wax philosophical, we had many people who were like, "Oh, come on, give us a delicious philosopher name dropping." And so it's as though people are thirsty for some Malcolm talk time. So yeah.
Oh my god. Well, I also, to be honest, my memory of it, I realized was a little more impressionistic than I thought. It's been a long time since university.
Yeah. But what we should do, to our friend Tempo's point, is dive into what's in the book.
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit about the cults themselves. Let's see.
So we have it split. Basically, we have major cults and somewhat less major cults, right? So, and this is just an affordance so that we can do deeper treatment of a small number, but pack in the rest of them too.
So is that the difference, like the significant versus other?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so real quick, we'll just kind of run through this stuff. That it just talks about, what we've got in here, how you want to use it, the nature of cults, persistence. Why do people join cults? That's very interesting. I do love the discussion of cults. I find them fascinating, and I especially find them fascinating in a safe, fake world.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Oh, well, I mean, then, if you're talking about real new religious movements, then, it gets much more hazy. We're kind of lucky in that in Cthulhu Awakens, the cults interact with the mythos, and that really creates a dividing line that you don't see in real world new religious movements. Right?
Truth. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
If you look, when you look at like something like Shinri Kyo and, who did the sarin attacks in Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
It's in retrospect, the increasing extremism, is obvious. But, if you're not paying attention to that group, how can you predict it? Right.
I was going to say to Jay, very interesting. I love it when our community is kind of attuned to our product and all the finer points. But there is a little section here, cults as organizations, that talks about using some of the organizational rules.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the things that I love about, we could go in 1,000 different directions because so much of what we build for Age across the lines,
it's quite portable between
very
games,
portable,
right?
Yeah.
So you could definitely take the descriptions and then you say, there are organization systems in modern Age and in Fantasy Age, right? In the companion, in the old companion, that you could apply.
Now, can you talk a little bit about Revelations?
Revelations is like the Revelations alienation facet. Gotcha. in the core, except Revelations would apply to. Well, now I'm gonna cheat.
Yeah,
and stare at the page.
My favorite part about it is that we got one big Malcolm eyeball.
So how much the cult knows about the mythos, right?
How ignorant they are to what's going on in the world for real.
Yeah.
True understanding. Yeah, very interesting. And so, and then we've got membership and alienation. See alienation through cults. So we'll get into that a little bit. Occult bonds.
Yeah. So Cthulhu Awakens has expanded kind of what bonds do from the original treatment as relationships, which we see in other games like Blue Rose, and more recently Fantasy Age and Modern Age, into kind of a more general thing. The whole thing with bonds are just a great game design widget that you can do so much with, right?
Yeah.
So, so we have some ideas for, using that.
Absolutely. And talk a little bit here in the paragraph, and folks will want to dive in when they pick it up if they haven't already. Is the like terror bonds and the various cult bonds and all of the personal bonds. Yeah, there's some systems too.
One of the things that a cult does for you is that it gives you access to these stunts, right?
Yeah.
Based on your cult's various levels of commitment along the different alienation axes. Right? Yeah,
and I love.
And if you go to the individual cult descriptions, there's just a little capsule listing of their scores and any other special systems they might have.
I like the work that we've done to sort of flesh out, what membership looks like if you are a neophyte or if you are, rank highly, or if you're an ex-member. That's a fun facet.
Yeah, I moved it to talents in Cthulhu Awakens to make it a little more central, because once it becomes a character trait, then people pay attention to it and people make use of it actively, right? Because if you buy a talent degree, you don't want it to go to waste, right?
Right. Now there's bonds and stunts, and then losses and gains.
Yeah, that's for when something happens to the cult, right? And that, if you're a member of a cult, right, that's obviously going to be relevant. But also, it works for when you're trying to defeat a cult, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what you can do is we have guidelines there for degrading a cult's ability to do things by reducing its abilities.
Yeah.
Right. Until you finally finish it off in some suitably interesting finale.
Yeah, awesome. We get into the talking about the alien phenomena, alienation tests, and all of this, and it's a fascinating bit of business. But for me,
so that's a table of stunts that
Hey, Paul.
That you can get access to.
Good to see you, friend. And so the thing that I'm excited about, for me personally, I always love the notion of undercover activities, or and that could really be as you're reacting to the ebb and flow of the organization. That could be a lot of fun, or very dangerous.
Yeah.
Love that. So we've got the cult stunts. That's great. Very, I love the way that we are able to sort of package these stunts in such a, they're all very believable, fun, sort of moments that can really inform you as a, your character. And when people are engaging with this, let's say as a GM, how deep should they go? Or, what's the,
Well, you don't necessarily need to use any of these rules at all. You could just use the descriptions and go with it.
Nice.
Like, one thing I really encourage people to do, not just with Cthulhu Awakens, but for any age game, is you do not have to be consistent in terms of which rules you use. Okay, so it is perfectly fine to have, for example, with investigations, perfectly fine to have one session that is like super detailed investigations and leading to like a super complicated chase that uses all of the bells and whistles in our systems for those. And then have another system where have another session where it's just one test for each thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it just depends on how far you want to drill down into that experience, right? So for cults, right, maybe you just want to eyeball what their traits are and make things up, or maybe you want to use the full system, right? If characters are getting deep into cults, then that's kind of a signal that maybe it's time for you to use these rules a little more deeply, right? Yeah. But you pick them up when you need them, and you put them aside when you don't need them.
I love that.
Right? Because the thing that I'm trying to increasingly get across with Age is that it's not like a physics, biology, psychology, sociology simulator, right?
Right.
It's only about making things interesting in the game, right?
Yeah.
And if something is not making it interesting for you, then you can streamline it or set it aside, right?
Yeah.
And that applies to a lot of things. I was actually talking over in grad about that, where why don't NPCs have classes and this and that? And I'm like, well, they're not PCs. They don't need that stuff. Right? They have a story function. And the analogy I used, I think I used this before on the show here, where I tried to and forgot. Okay, Indiana Jones and Marcus Brody. Okay, so you have Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is clearly a player character, right?
Yeah.
Has all of this knowledge and can apply it on the fly while running across a bridge and cracking whip and doing all this stuff. Marcus Brody may be just as knowledgeable as Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
But in an adventure context, Marcus Brody is useless, right? Like if you remember, the thing that always makes me think of that is when India is captured by the Nazis in the third one, and they threatening to go get Marcus, and he goes, "Oh, you'll never find him. He has friends from here to there, and he speaks all these languages." And then you go to Marcus Brody, and he's going, "Hello, that kind of thing, right?"
Right. Yeah,
so that's the difference between a zero NPC and a PC. It's not that it's not about Marcus Brody's bonus, right? Marcus Brody isn't entitled to a big bonus just because they're a PhD and can speak a dozen languages, right? It's just what in an adventuring context, it's useless to him, right? Whereas in an adventuring context, Indiana Jones can do that stuff. So this is what I mean, right? There are a bunch of systems that you just don't need for NPCs that you just don't need if you're not going to zero in, right? But if you are going to zero in, we do have them, right?
Yeah, that's right. I like that. I like that. The other thing I like too is you really, having played in several different games run by GMs, some of our very favorite folks and streamers and such, their approach to managing the game is so different, but so informed by the product that it's just very fascinating. It's a real joy to see.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. Like I've mentioned this before, but I am in a long-running Modern Age threefold game, and I play. I don't run. My good friend Steve, not Steve Kenson, who you know, but a different Steve. Shout out to my my GM and buddy Steve, and everybody else in our threefold mission, and it's really interesting to see why he makes house rules and how he interprets different things.
Yeah.
And even, he talked to me about, the role, how making the art, making sure there's a diverse array of subjects in the art has changed, the NPCs that he comes up with in play. And that was really cool to hear. Right.
Nice. Now, what do you mean as far as just the texture of the personality, or just like a reflection of the, different walks of life, or all
different walks of life,
Yeah, nice.
Just not
narrow,
not just dudes like me.
Yeah,
like
I gotcha. No, I think that's great. And, the other piece of this is I wonder, now you are buddies with him. Does he, when you play in games where folks know that you've had a hand in sort of the crafting and are sort of the brain trust for these things, do they get intimidated by having you in there?
It happened once.
Yeah,
it happened once in a mage game a while ago.
Yeah,
but generally, no. I mean, it usually only becomes an issue if they're very new to the game, and it's and it's one of those kind of jostly competitive online environments, because I know the rules better than you, and I can just do a lot of things, right? So usually I balance that out by going, I'm doing this. You can tell me not to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
You have that open conversation. But, as far as it goes, say in my home game, is that every once in a while, if something's unclear, right?
Yeah.
Steve might take me aside and go, I think one of those, does this teleportation power work in this situation? Right.
Yeah.
Because there was another thing interfering with it. And I went, yes, this is how I would do it. Decide what you're going to decide.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Arbitrate. Here's a quick question about the. Sorry, just a question from the audience on very specific to, and I didn't really think about this. Generally, when I think of cults, my takeaway isn't positive. It's now the question that Tempo has is: are there any benevolent cults, or are they all evil?
Well, I mean, you're always, you can benevolently play with uranium, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's like. Like the Children of Relia are an example of that, right?
Yeah.
Because they are a self-defense organization, right? Because they are dealing with another, they're dealing with a cult of moneyed fascists in Arkham, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to do some dangerous stuff to keep pace with this, to defend their people, right?
Yeah.
But that's virtuous. But you might have to make some difficult decisions and take some real risks to keep up with that.
Got you. Yeah. Very interesting. So that's you can benevolently play with uranium. That is really great. So that's the children. Then we have what's next. So this is a breakdown, really a nice breakdown of all of the special stunts, the traits that they have. As a result of membership.
A lot of the time they have like a little special thing that we design especially for that cult. But we have general traits, and they can use all the general systems too. Right?
What predicates the special? Like, how did you determine that?
Well, based on the nature of the cult and whether we could do something cool with that.
Nice.
So,
let's see. This is interesting. How about this? Paul says, must say, since Malcolm joined our game and chose way different stunts than my players would have, they have all started taking different stunts themselves. That's great. That's great. I love it. Most certainly the rule of cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always nice to kind of hear it from the developer, themselves. So, okay. So the face of the Sphinx.
Face of the Sphinx. Those are, I believe they are one of the groups that deal with animated dead.
Oh.
And they are run by a mummy who was also once possessed by an alien.
Oh. The drama of it all.
Things get complicated.
Yeah, a little telenovela action. I like it. Yithians really involved in the.
They're kind of like paramilitary undead. Yes, Yithians are involved.
Got you. Okay, paramilitary.
They're kind of they're mummy zombie commandos.
No, I don't necessarily want to read every single one of these, but do you have a favorite cult?
I have a favorite cult. Oh, geez. Probably
Good to see you, friend.
Phallusology.
Phallusology.
Yes.
What page is that on?
It's one of the major ones, so it won't be far.
The phallus. Okay, I misheard.
It is. It's a human potential movement, right? The fact, and it has a high concentration of believers in a urban development called Innsmouth, named after the town that once stood there.
Okay.
Right? But of course, it has branches all around the world, and with encounter centers where if you go through the different levels and pay enough, you too can learn the marine wisdom to transcend your mortal form.
I see.
Perhaps even literally.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So
you have probably a lot of famous people are involved with Phallusology.
I see. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So
and I want to emphasize, Troy, that it bears no resemblance to any other recent religious movement that makes you pay through the nose and is highly secretive
with levels and training and
attracts Hollywood people.
Yeah,
it has no relationship with any of those.
No, yeah, because that one, I think, that's a totally different. That one's Phallusology. I think it's a totally different. Totally different thing. That's cruel. That's cruel. I said that's cruel. That's cool is what I meant to say. Okay, so we have Universal Prosperity Society.
Oh yeah, that's a psychic pyramid scheme.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's great. One of the things I was thinking about just now is I would love to see a conflict amongst the cults play out in a campaign.
Yeah, well, I mean that's one of the things the rules are for, right?
Yeah.
You can do cult wars and kind of track their relative power and success over time using these systems. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can spice it up with some of the stuff from Dreadcrawls too.
Hey,
you can use the story generation tools and is the third one confusingly called number 2 out yet? Because it has the event generator.
Oh, nice. A little hint.
Yeah, it does like large scale events.
Yeah, I think we've got 0 and 1 is out.
Basically, once all 3 of them are out, it's a very robust set of event and story and site generating tools that all kind of work together. Jesse Hennig did a fantastic job.
Yeah, the dread crawls are just brilliant. I love them. I just love everything about it. I think it sort of scratches a bit of that zine thing that I carry with me from the 90s. So, yeah. Okay, great. And so I was going to ask another
These are the
question.
ones that get smaller descriptions, and
Yeah.
there's a bunch of them.
Now, is there space in this world? I mean, I know the answer, but for folks who may not be thinking in these terms, could people create their own big cult?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You just you give it a backstory, you assign it traits, and you go, right?
love it.
Or maybe what you could do is be there for the founding moment, start with all of the cult scores at 0, and just see how you do.
Oh my gosh,
Trying to get more culty, right?
Yeah. I love that. What a great idea. What a real creative way to really put the tools to use. Other thoughts that you have as these were, as the cults were getting fleshed out, and are there things that creative applications, or maybe I know that everybody when you're developing for TTRPGs, it's there are a lot of ideas that kind of hang out in a liminal state.
What would I have liked? Well, I pretty much everybody did such a great job in this. Not much more that I would want to do. The only thing would be some of the Demimon stuff, right? We wanted a much more prominent place in the core where, you can travel to these alternate histories in different points of time, right?
Yeah.
If I could do weird alternate Earth cults that you can visit using the corridors, then that would have been great. But I really wanted to get all the cults in the core out with a few new ones. So we didn't really get there.
I love that. I think that at some point I would really enjoy sort of maybe an age developer confab. Maybe we invite we invite Steve and we have Ian pop on, and we just sort of get real creative, just think about some of and share some of the insights into sort of the things that linger after, working on projects like this. There's got to be some real fun stuff to
but this came out pretty much the way it was supposed to come out. I'm pretty pleased with it. One thing I wanted to do was so the thing that happens a lot in role-playing games is that they'll take they'll kind of Star Trekify things to excess, which if you remember Star Trek, one of Star Trek's kind of tools is we will talk about this real world issue through a science fictional allegory, right? And that's great, but there are times where when it's happening in our world, people tend to talk around the politics and talk around the real world stuff. So, there are a couple of cults in there that are fascists, and we just call them fascists. We don't make a whole pretend fascist organization of the pretend ideology that's like fascism but isn't fascism.
Just call it.
Right.
How refreshing. What a refreshing.
So, and that means that, you should be aware that there is a lot of content that you might not, you might want to kind of take a look at your, at your safety tools and
intolerance
for things, because some of the cults are, they're bad folks, and that means they're real world bad. And sometimes that means they're racist, for example. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's not cavalcade of real world horrors with the mythos on top. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And there are some cult, like Pikmin's Shelter there is a pretty benevolent example of a cult.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I was just kind of getting into that. Yeah. Very interesting. And so I think that's important, is that's one of the reasons why I find that our approach to the mythos has such a literacy component to it, just a real, it it doesn't ask you to dismiss bad stuff, or you talk about the Star Warsification or the Disneyfication or the making things palatable and finding shortcuts around it. But it's not like it's a glorification of those things either. So
no, it's not a glorification of those things, and that's something this is where I put on my I go into old man yells at cloud mode, right?
Sure.
So I think with the enormous recent influence of young adult fiction and its extension into adult fiction, into adult fiction, you have a lot of people who are not used to non-aspirational characters, like people you don't want to be.
Right. Yeah.
People you don't want to be, or people who, or the story of somebody doing bad things, right?
Yeah.
And there is and that kind of works at cross purposes with horror, right?
Certainly. Yeah.
Because horror, isn't necessarily about, if you can have horror with heroes, but that's going to be a sliver of what horror is, right?
Yeah.
And I think right now, really, it's like there's a lot of television that's doing a better job of it than fantasy and science fiction and that some of the really prominent stuff necessarily. But there are exceptions, right? Like I read, I just finished Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And that is great because it has a protagonist who is a twit, right?
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed seeing this person's failings play out.
Yeah.
The day the poutine ran out. What a tragedy. The funny thing is, I was actually talking to a friend of mine. I haven't had poutine in ages because gravy is another thing that can give me kidney stones. So
you're kidding.
So I have to be very sparing
around these parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It would be just plain Scotch for me. I wish this guy in this illustration looked more like Elon Musk. That's my only complaint. I really wish I'd thought of that at the time.
He is throwing off some vibes, though. I literally, that was the first person it evoked very musky.
The guy about to be obliterated by his own rocket engine.
Right. And thumbs up, everybody. I love emergency system malfunction.
Yeah. There's rules. There's a bit of parody in there too. And certainly that particular bit. That is specifically a parody of, oh God, I guess I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
It wasn't invented by me. But in my development of it, I saw a lot of similarities between it and the Edge Foundation. The Edge Foundation is this sort of like, kind of confab between tech bros and scientists, and they came up with a lot of dumb ideas. And part of it, and basically, if you're looking at a lot of sort of, if you follow things with like, right-wing atheism and things like that, and some of the more objectionable things that people like Richard Dawkins have started saying as they've continued to daughter. A lot of it comes from this collective of very smart people who somehow managed to be idiots.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not even getting into it. Like I can't even talk about the punchline of it here. But it's that edge.org and TED Talks and if someone knows about one thing, they obviously now they feel entitled to speak about everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
right?
And that is this picture really does encapsulate that sort of fire in the belly LinkedIn kind of
Yeah, yeah,
self-aggrandizing. Because I am the CEO, I'm also brilliant in
yeah.
every other way.
And in this, it's an alien plot to steal the brains of smart people.
I love
Steal the
that.
brains of gullible smart people.
I
So
like it. I like that a lot.
I guess I'm spoiling a lot of this, but it's so much fun.
Well, I don't know if it's really spoiling. I think that we do a little bit of the process and the I think we got to get a little into the weeds, but I don't
That's
think
true.
we way too much. So well, we are about 4 minutes over. I do want to say this real quick. Hey, friends, do me a favor. So the majority of folks who watch our programs, and our numbers are going through the
Oh,
roof.
Side of the Yellow Sign. They're like art school astronauts.
Right. So what we're
And we trauma ourselves into space.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
On a mission on way to Mars. But the people who are who watch the ThursdAGE, a lot of you are not subscribed, and I got to tell you, what the benefit of subscribing
Fools.
is. We get ghouls, exactly. We get to when you subscribe, we get a little boost, and the algorithm goes, people are interested in that. But in addition, you get notifications when we go live, and sometimes we do ad hoc lives, or we'll do actual plays on the weekends, and you want to know what's what. So make sure you've subscribed. Yeah, got to hit that button. Got to tickle that. Yeah, I know, right? Jay Gray says, y'all need subbed. You do indeed. Also, make sure that you tickle that bell for the notifications, and if you are watching us on Facebook, or you're watching us over on YouTube or Twitch, jump over to the other platforms and make sure you're liking and subscribing. And when you see these individual streams, give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us this. Don't give us stars, Nate. I think I turned that off.
Yeah. Submit. I mean, subscribe.
Subscribe, and submit as well. Do both.
Yeah. Everybody likes a great sub.
Yeah. And here's the yes, indeed. And also the conversation continues over at the Atomic Think Tank. And folks, if you are not familiar, go to atomicthinktank.com, and there are spaces wherein we have opportunities to discuss very specific stuff about Cthulhu Awakens, or Mutants and Masterminds, or you name it. All of the Age games are represented. And in addition, you get to hang out with developers. You get to hang out with other Green Ronin staff. I do office hours every Wednesday. You can come and hang out and ask questions. If you've got a special project in mind, maybe you're going to run a new live stream and you're utilizing one of our products. We support you in all those ways, and you get direct connection, and it's a lot of fun, and it's free. So there is on the horizon, in the very near future, there will be the Age Insiders program, which I'm not sure if I care for that name. But that being said, everything that you see as you come in today, all that will remain free, all of that stuff. And we'll be layering on some very special stuff that for the exorbitant cost of $8 a month, you'd be able to take advantage of. There's some really good stuff, and we'll get into that in more detail.
Yeah, one of the things I'm thinking of when that launches is maybe, showing some of you folks some early drafts of our stuff.
Ooh, right? Nice.
Especially as, things get kind of set up, which reminds me, I finalized the text for Swords of the Shadow Planet just today. Nice. Yes.
So now, does that mean that it's off to an editor, or it's?
No, it's been edited. It came back. It came back from Jennifer Clark Wilkes, an amazing editor who does not give you a break. So thank you for that. And and no, I went over it, and now it is in the production process, and you too will learn about a world where the sky is a ceiling and the sun is a rectangle, and there are ancient Egyptians with ray guns.
Oh, I like it. A little culture gemming going on.
I love that I can just say something new and weird about this every time I talk.
And it will drive everyone crazy, and they will continue to ask. There are a couple questions that we want to answer real fast, or maybe promise an answer at another time. But modern age powers.
Modern age powers. Currently looking at the art for it.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. It start after an admittedly very long delay. Things are moving forward.
Yeah, we get
it
there.
Is not my place. It's not my place to talk dates, but you know, it is a this year thing.
Nice. Yeah, and we're getting to that point where we got to start looking at windows and that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, like part of it is that the publisher services landscape is really changing.
Yeah,
because of political changes and economic changes. And I know that sounds very tired, but it just keeps happening, right?
No, yeah, no, and we've been pretty open about it.
Especially printing.
Yes, yeah, it's chaos right now.
Yeah, one of the things you may or may not be aware of is that like a printer is not a generic printer. Like printers have different
specialties,
capabilities for things, and there are some things where there are entire countries that don't have the capacity to print certain things we need.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And there are others where, they'll do one thing really well, but another thing not so well.
But then there are also moments in time where people just have no pulp.
Yes.
I mean, like that.
That's the other thing too, right? Yeah. Yeah. So like there's like wood pulp arbitrage. That's a factor too. It's the weirdest thing.
It's really weird. Yeah.
And then that doesn't
even factor in shipping issues and all of that as well. Like,
and shipping gets weird too, as like, as there are, political and economic changes to that.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm just hearing in like 1 year when I catch something.
Yeah.
When the operations side of things.
Yeah.
And that comes up, but
when we're lamenting,
there's even more that I am doubtless not aware of. But in that environment, we're trying our darn best.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: if we get it done, it gets there. It gets there, and it gets there when it's ready and it's good. And I love that.
Some of the art for Powers looks fantastic.
Well, we might have to bug you about coming back and maybe doing a little glimpse.
I would love to. Okay,
fantastic.
Actually, already put one up in my blue sky.
Paul Shaw says, "Oh, shipping." He shared with me the cost for books over. He's a Kiwi, and so.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's another world. I mean, it shocks me every single time, and I
wonder if there could be, if there was only some like easy like printer localization.
We're doing that. That's actually what Nicole's been working on, is finding printers in
that would be great.
Distribution places or what have you. I mean, maybe not printers as much as distribution, but it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But
even just getting something from the US can get weird for us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like there's a whole, at the border, there are a whole bunch of these mailbox services, right? Yeah. Where they'll ship it to Niagara Falls and then you hop across and pick it up.
Yeah.
I remember we did that once because, I forget the name of the company, but there was a game company that had a big sale and we all bought into it. But we realized it would be worthless if we had it shipped to us. So we had it shipped there. And then we all went on a fancy trip to pick up our books and eat tacos from this one particular taco chain that sponsors PBS in our area. It's hilarious because it'll be, Mighty Taco.
Mighty Taco, okay.
So it's the funniest thing. I know none of you care about this, but I'm still going to waste your time. Okay, so you know how when you're watching like a PBS, a fancy PBS show like Poldark or Wolf Hall, right?
Oh, sure.
Made, this is made possible by a grant from the Fancy Corporation and the estate of, and then at the end it'll have, and Mighty Taco. Right? And this taco jumps up, and I'm like, yes.
There we go. I love it.
I have to support them.
I see maybe a different take on The Hangover, like a road trip where nerds are getting their TTRPG books and coming of age of.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Hey, friends in chat, thank you so much for hanging out. We really appreciate all your great questions, and I am always appreciative of folks when they get to. When they sit down and engage with our developers and they really take advantage of the time, they really sort of they smell what you're stepping in. They see the machinations and they like it, and I love that. So thank you, Malcolm, very much. I appreciate it, and so we'll have you back. We've got people who are there. A lot of folks very much appreciative of the little morsels of information, but are hungry for maybe something a little meatier, like some art or something, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I will try and get a better light too, because I was telling Troy, I couldn't really get my ring light to work after I got to work. I couldn't get it. It's got a
very
so I'm in the gloom.
Muted, gloom, right? But perfect nonetheless. A great show. Thank you so very much. Hey, everybody, make sure that you are paying attention to our broadcast schedule. We'll be doing we have lots of great things planned, especially some actual plays and other stuff. But Mutants Masterminds, of course, we do Mutants Masterminds Monday, followed on Tuesday with The Joy of Game Mastering by our own Alex Thomas. And so, we'll be back next Thursday for ThursdAGE. And I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet, but if you've got a topic or something that you would like to share, I'm always keen to hear from our Age Creators Alliance folks. If you're working on a new project, we want to do a roundtable discussion with those folks to kind of encourage more people to create. And I know that there are people in chat that are working on projects. So if that sounds interesting to you, reach out. You can either send a note to let's play at greenronin.com or head over to atomicthinktank.com and engage with me directly. Another reminder for folks as well, Wednesdays are office hours over in the tank, so you get to come and hang out. We really have a blast. No work gets done, but we do hang out and talk, and it's a really good time. Did you want to say something, Malcolm?
No, I'm good.
Fantastic. All right, everybody.
See you all, or not see you all. Know that you're there.
Be aware of you all.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.